Another very active week. One of the major points on the floor this week was House Concurrent Resolution 4, which rejects recommendations from the Citizens Commission on elected officials' compensation.
That it did, and that's kind of a tricky situation in that the Salary Commission, which was approved by the citizens of Missouri, and it's in the Constitution, that this commission shall make a recommendation, so we have to pass a resolution saying, no, we do not take your recommendation. So that got kind of complicated. We did defeat it. There will not be a raise for state elected officials or legislative body officials. That's huge with me. It doesn't appear, I haven't looked at the budget yet in that portion of it. We just got it maybe an hour ago, but I don't see pay raises in there for state employees, and the state employees don't get a raise for sure. The legislative body does not need a pay increase. And it's going to be an expensive increase, and the budget is in problems. We've got some real issues with lack of funds, and we sure don't do that. And I've been up here, my gosh, 12, 14 years now, I guess, 12 years as a rep and as a senator, 13th year now, and I've never voted for a pay increase, nor do I ever intend to. I knew what the salary was when I came and don't intend to. So we'll see. But it was a struggle this year. There's some shenanigans that were pulled where people asked to be rescinded from voting on it, and that way they tried to keep it where we would have enough votes where we could reject that. And that was the game, and it took us 6 or 8 hours to reject that. And I was impressed by my fellow Senator Doc Brown from Phelps County, but he actually grew up in Houston, Missouri, and graduated from school there. He was at his father-in-law's visitation and heard what was going on and just told Kathy, his wife, hey, I've got to go to Jeff City. We cannot let this happen. And drove to Jeff City, made the vote to stop the pay increase, which we all very much appreciated. Most of us did, and then drove back to be with his family later that night. But 8 or 9 o'clock at night, he showed up. And that's dedication. That's the kind of people I work with, proud of.
Also this week, a Senate bill, I believe Senate Bill 19, which puts right to work into law in the state, now has passed the House.
It passed the House, came back over the Senate. The President pro tem, Ron Richards, signed it, and it is sitting on the governor's desk as we speak. So that will become law.
It's been a long fight for getting that implemented here.
It is. When I came up here 14 years ago, that's been a battle ever since. I honestly believe that unions will not be hurt. I honestly believe it'll bring more jobs to Missouri. Everybody will prosper. And the union bosses don't say that, but I think in the long run, if people look at the actual statistics, they'll see that it does. And if I open up a factory and it isn't a union factory, at least probably that truck coming is going to be union made. The tires on it are going to be union made. Shipping, if it comes in by rail, is going to be by union. So hopefully it makes more jobs for everybody. And Missouri's a better place with it.
You mentioned a little bit about this earlier, but the governor today, as we tape this, has just released his budget for the next fiscal year.
He did, and the first thing I went to was K through 12 education, and I was very disappointed that he cut our transportation funding for schools in our rural areas. That is so crucial for our schools, and we don't fully fund the formula. We're really close, and he did add, I think, $5 million to the formula, which isn't going to do much, but cut rural transportation $35 to $40 million. That affects our rural schools, and I was told several years ago, a Buffalo, Missouri superintendent came up here and told me their school route was equal to a trip to New York every day. And so I mentioned to the superintendent, Ava, and Brian did some figuring that his equal to a trip to Florida every day. I mean, those buses put on lots of miles. They probably get 5 or 6 miles to a gallon with the stop and starts and the load that they carry. And so that formula is based on the transportation part. It's based to cover actual expenses, the bus driver's salary, the gasoline used, purchase of new buses, and maintenance on them. And then the state, by statute, is supposed to pick up 70%. Right now, we probably pick up 30%. That's hard on our rural schools. So that's going to be a battle. I've already started lining up some people to see if we can find some money and divert some money and not go along with the governor's recommendations there.
How do you go about doing that? As in, we've been told there's, $700 million this might be cut out the next year and a half, where we're back in the situation where there's money that's needed but nowhere to be found.
And that's true, and it's really difficult because social services takes about 40% of our budget, and more than that, that's the biggest thing in the budget. And how do you cut that? That's really difficult. And then in turn, K through 12 comes right after that, and with higher ed, that's over 40%. So that's the two big targets. You can't really cut prisons. We've cut them about as far as we can go, and there's really not much money in the budget to do, so it's going to take some real work. See if we can find something somewhere, and somebody's going to suffer over it. There will have to be some cuts somewhere, but I hate to see education cut from our young students in rural areas. That's so important, and the state has an obligation, and we sure don't want to raise taxes. We don't want to run people out of business. We don't want to do anything that's going to affect the economy or make a hardship on Missourians, but somehow or another we have to come up with some money to help this fight to get some money for our rural transportation.